John, how you doing?
I'm fine. Everything is copacetic here in Dover, Delaware. It's a cool January morning. I'm sitting in my office, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, down here in Texas, it is. I'll tell you, it is 65 degrees. So,
Oh, wow. Wow, you've got me by about 20 degrees at least.
yeah, it's pretty nice weather. We've been having warm weather. It's gonna go up to about 80 today. So it kind of goes from 55 to 80 all day long. It's not bad.
I, I, uh, I envy that very much so this time of year.
I imagine. So, John, let's talk about you. Um,
That's a boring subject.
What a what is I mean, I guess what I really want to know is how do you end up as president of the NRA? What led to all that? I'm sure there's a lot that led to it.
Well, it's more by accident than design, certainly. Um, can begin. I joined the NRA when I was in the Navy in 1970. Uh, Became an NRA competitive shooter in 70, probably 72 as a PPC shooter, police pistol combat. And fast forward to after I retired from the police department, I became an NRA referee. And I was at Camp Perry, a bunch of referees sitting under a tent, and someone was talking about the fact that there were not enough competitive shooters on the NRA board. And I said, well, why don't we get somebody that we know to run for it? Next thing you know, I'm the one running for it. Be careful what you say when you open your mouth. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I spent 10 years as the chairman of the finance committee, 10 years as the chairman of the police law enforcement assistance committee. And it just so happened that the people above me thought that might have something to offer, and was elected second vice president. Did 2 years as that, 2 years as first vice president, and then 2 years as president. Um, I came in. I was the group of officers that immediately followed Heston. When Heston left, Kane Robinson became president, and I became his second vice president. So it was just a matter of being someplace where somebody thought that I might be able to have something to offer, and I, I quite frankly crafted my presidency around competitive shooting. No one had done that in quite a while. As you're well aware, competitive shooting was and still has a lot of challenges, and I was trying to do something for the competitive shooters. Of course, that's me. That's who I am. That's how I got there. And I created a competitive shooting endowment, trying to make sure that there would be money for competitive shooting. Um, and that's how I became an F-class shooter. Um, if I can back up, um, I was minding my own business, driving from Dover to Wilmington, and my cell phone, in those days it was a bag phone, rang, and someone that I didn't know called me up and asked if I was John Sigler. I said, yes. I said, we've got a problem. The F-class team we need to have an NRA F-class national championship in order to qualify under ICFA rules to go to the 2005 Worlds in South Africa. And I kind of said, okay, what do you expect me to do? So long story short, we got provisional sanctioning for the first NRA F-class national championships at Camp Butner, North Carolina. And I think that was in 2004. And of course, the team went to South Africa in 2005. So we've come full scope because we're getting ready to go to South Africa in 2023.
Right.
Um, Following on with that, they invited me to come down and shoot. They provided me with a rifle and ammunition, great rifle, great ammunition, and my very first match, there was absolutely no wind. I had no idea what I was doing, but as a pistol shooter, I knew how to pull a trigger. And I laid down and was very, very lucky and ended up winning the first match I ever shot in, which was a 150-14X. But little caveat, that was on the old target. I have no idea what the score would be on this target now. And it was with as I said, it was absolutely dead calm and with a great rifle, great ammunition. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just plain lucky. And then after that, I got a call a few years later. I was president at the time, and got a call from Larry Bartholomew, who asked if they provided a rifle, would I shoot the rifle in the Nationals and autograph it, and then they would raffle it off to support the team. I said, sure, I'll be glad to do that. I mean, anytime I can shoot somebody else's rifle with somebody else's ammunition, I'm going to do it. So that was at Lodi, and that was toward the end of my office as president. And I came back from Lodi and told my riflesmith, I said, build me an F-class rifle. I want to learn to shoot F-class. And the rest is history.
Well, pretty good history, I would say.
Pretty lucky, actually. Pretty lucky. Had a lot of help and a lot of good mentors and good teachers. I am not naturally like you and a lot of the other guys on the team. My mechanical abilities are almost nil, so I have to have other people teach me how to do things. And if I run into problems, I've got to yell help real quick.
Well, it's I pretty much do mine out of necessity. Just I don't know. I want something a certain way, and sometimes I can't get it in a timely manner, so I just do it myself. But anyway, so what does it all entail to be president of the NRA? Was it like this? Was it like this back when you were on, like with all this Antifa? I mean, I know we didn't have that. Was there something similar that you had to fight?
Mostly what we were fighting at that time was the attack on the Second Amendment. The day that I was sworn in was the same day as the shooting at Virginia Tech, and you can imagine what that was like. Understand that the president of the NRA really isn't the CEO. The president of the NRA is the chairman of the board. Mm-hmm. I'm just another board member at that point. I'm the chairman. A lot of the job of the president is to oversee the committees. The president appoints all the committees, and to during my time anyway, go out and show the flag. Some of it is fundraising, but most of what I did was go out and be with the people. Spread the word, show the flag, so to speak, learn what the people want, what our members want, and try to go back and get the board to give the members what they want. That was my job. I was an ambassador, if you will, to the rest of the membership. And I was lucky because during the time I was in the chairs and leading into that time, we grew from about 3 million to 5 million members. So we grew as an organization during that time, and we had a good time. We were still basking in the glow, if you will, of the Heston years. Heston was a great president. He was a great ambassador. He's a great man. I respect him. I respected him tremendously and learned from him. But basically, being president of the NRA is it's a tiring job. You do a lot of travel. It took away from my career as an attorney, but it was enjoyable. And the most enjoyable part was being able to meet members from throughout the country and for that matter, throughout the world. Our members are just absolutely wonderful people. I don't care whether they are millionaires and billionaires with lots of oil wells and their own airplanes or whether they're the guy walking off the line after midnight shift at some factory. They're the same people. They're wonderful patriots. They love our country. They love the shooting sports, and they believe in freedom. They believe in the Second Amendment. I don't care who they are, how rich they are, how poor they are, or what part of the country they're from, or what shooting sport they might participate in. They're all the same. They're great people.
I will agree with that. Um, what do you think? I still can't. I don't even know how to formulate the question, because I can't comprehend why people would be against the Second Amendment, which is, it's a right. You are literally taking rights away from yourself when you're against it. It makes zero sense to me, and I don't understand it.
Well, I understand why you would have a difficult time formulating that question, because I don't know why people would do that either, except for the fact that they simply do not understand. They don't understand our history. They don't understand our culture. They don't understand the American people. The Second Amendment stands for freedom. I remember Heston saying that a government wherein the people have been disarmed, those people are subjects. They are not citizens. We're citizens. Our government is supposed to do what we want it to do. We're not supposed to be doing what our government tells us to do. And that's the difference in the philosophy. You certainly understand. You've shot in other countries. You've been around our brothers and sisters from other countries, and you hear them talk about what it's like in their own countries. One of the things that always impresses me and inspires me is how many times the shooters from other countries tell us that we need to continue to fight for the Second Amendment here in the United States, because if we lose it, they lose what little they have, that we're the ones that protect them. And I firmly believe that, mainly because they tell me that. And I'm sure they've said the same thing to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've, many times they tell us, don't quit fighting, don't quit fighting, because that's what we did. And look at us now.
Especially the English, the Brits. The British government divided the shooters. First it was the pistol shooters, and then it was something else, and then it was something else, and then it was everybody. It was the old thing about, first they came for whoever, and then, you remember those sayings.
Right.
And it's true. And it's true. They divided them to the point where when the final axe fell in England and in Great Britain generally, they had isolated and eliminated everybody except that last group, and the last group went. Which I'm hoping and praying that never happens here in the United States. And it's the only way it could happen is if we stop fighting. We have to continue fighting for the Second Amendment, fighting for freedom, understanding our constitutional rights, understanding the basis of our freedom, where it came from. That's one of the things that scares me, Eric. I learned a couple of years ago that, at least here in Delaware, they don't even teach American history before 1855. Good heavens. How can we understand who we are as a people if we don't understand where we came from? I hope that they're down in Texas and other places, they're teaching the history of our revolution, the history of our government and our country as we move forward and we develop. Was it a pretty history? Not always, but it's our history. We need to understand that. We need to learn from our mistakes and learn from the things that we've done right and continue to build on those things. That's my philosophy. I'm sorry I'm preaching.
No, this is precisely why I wanted to talk to you, because, you say, our history, it's not very pretty. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, right? And we must learn it, and it needs to be present, and it needs to be it needs to be in the decision making process when we say, let's take the guns away. Well, wait a minute, go back to 1776, you know, and go back to the 1700s where we were being oppressed, and the guns is what did it. Nowadays they make the argument like you could never fight the government with an AR-15. That's not the point. The point is we're gonna try, right? And there's
Yeah.
there's strength in numbers, and there is a lot of citizens that would die for this country, obviously, right? But
But
it's
a lot of the people from my generation, your generation, have died for it, and our parents' generation. My father was a World War II vet. I served during the Vietnam era. I wasn't. I was in the Navy. I was in submarines. I wasn't in Vietnam, but a lot of the people that I knew were. Some of them didn't come home. Some of my friends didn't come home. They were on the USS Scorpion. We've all given something. And what have we given it for? We've given it. America isn't a place. I used to say this in some of my speeches when I was president. America isn't a place on a map or a place on a globe. America is a set of ideas and ideals. That's who we are as a people. That's what America is. We are the ideals and the ideas that are contained first in the Declaration of Independence, and second in the Constitution, and third in the Bill of Rights. That's who we are, and we should always strive to return to our roots and do the things that the founding fathers who wrote those wonderful words expect of us. It's not negotiable. Freedom is not negotiable. It simply is not, and it cannot be. He who gives up freedom for security deserves neither, and will have neither. And I don't know who said that. It wasn't me.
Abraham Lincoln. I believe it was Abraham Lincoln, I believe.
Okay.
Or Franklin. I think it was Abraham. Either way, it's true. And, as you can imagine, I have a lot of discussions about guns and gun rights. And, I'm in Texas, so I don't have them often. But when I do, it is very clear that they don't quite understand the purpose of the Second Amendment. For example, I had a discussion. They, in Texas, they passed a law that's open carry. You can just open carry, and I was having a discussion with somebody, and they said, why would you keep guns in your house? I said, protection. From whom? I'm like, from whoever I need to protect myself from. That's the point. I don't know. And I hope I never have to use it. That is honestly just like when I buy insurance for my car. I hope I don't ever have to use it, but I still have insurance. When I put on my seatbelt, I hope it's useless the entire time I wear it for my entire life. But if one day I happen to need it, it's only gonna come in handy if I have it on. So I have it. And she says, so you're telling me if somebody was to come in here in your house, middle of the night, they break down your door, you would simply murder them? I said, whoa, stop right there. That's where the distinction happens. I said, I am not going to murder anyone. If they are trying to do me harm, or my family, or anyone for that matter, I will simply try to stop them. I said, I hope when they come in the door, they can, reevaluate and turn around and go. But if I need to stop them, I will. That means throwing chairs, throwing knives, whatever. But if I happen to have a gun on me, guess what? More than likely, if somebody's going to break in, they're probably going to have a gun on them too. So you don't want to be outgunned. But no, it is not murder. Murder is, and you're an attorney, it's in the intent.
Right.
So right. I said, I don't want to kill anyone. I'm simply trying to stop the threat. That's it.
I totally agree with you. They're welcome to my TV set. They just can't have my wife or me. They're take it all. I don't care. But as soon as you decide that you're going to harm me or harm my wife, I don't have any kids. As soon as you decide you're going to do bodily harm, in my mind, you forfeited your life, and that's the way it's going to be. I was a police officer for 20 years, carried a gun every day. Luckily, one of the biggest thrills in my life was the day I retired and didn't have to carry a gun anymore. But now our society is such that you kind of wonder.
Well, the other,
and a lot of us have concealed carry permits and that type of thing. So
yeah, the other question I'm faced with is, why do you have to carry a gun? I'm like, why? I don't, and they said, well, having a gun doesn't make you safer or me. I said, really? I said, let's just say this argument was to get pretty heated and I was just going to start beating on you. Who are they going to call? They could call many people. They could call firefighters. They could call paramedics. They could call whoever. I said, the first person they're going to think about calling is the person that carries a gun, which is a cop. I said, but, think about it. Think about it. It's I don't know. It's these arguments that I've had, and again, it blows me away as to the ideology that we're going to be safer if the law-abiding citizen, doesn't have guns. Makes zero sense.
It's first of all, the choice to arm yourself, the choice to carry or at least have one at home wherever is a personal choice. That's what it's about. That's freedom. Freedom is the ability to make that choice, yes or no. If you decide that you don't want to carry, fine. That's your choice. That's one of the choices you have because it's a free country. If you decide that you want to carry and you want to do that responsibly, you want to be responsible, and you are willing to do the things necessary to be safe, then that's also your choice. It's that's the difference between being a citizen and being a subject. It is really that simple. Is the ability to take responsibility for yourself, take responsibility for your family, and be a responsible citizen.
Yeah. What is the main role of the NRA?
Well, the NRA has, in its bylaws, it has a list of things that are the purposes of the corporation, if you will. And number one on that list is the defense of freedom, the defense of our Constitution, and in particular, the defense of the Second Amendment, right to keep and bear arms for lawful purposes by lawful people. But also down in that list are other things: competitive shooting, training, education, hunting, protection of the right to hunt, conservation. It's a long list of things that the founders of our organization 151 years ago thought were important to the people of the United States of America. And they read like apple pie and mother. That is the NRA. NRA is apple pie and mother. NRA is, in fact, the epitome of the American dream and the promise of freedom in America. That's what the NRA is.
Now, I mean, I know for a fact we need the NRA, just because every time, I see people attacking the NRA, and these are anti-gun people. The first thing they do is attack the NRA. They blame the NRA. Every time there's a mass shooting, they attack the NRA. So that tells me that that's the one thing that's protecting us, if that's the very first thing they think about blaming. What about, obviously mass shootings are very unfortunate, and we wish they didn't happen. But why is it that when there's a mass shooting involved, they immediately blame the gun?
That's a good question. I suspect my answer to that question, based on what I've seen in my lifetime and what I believe to be true, is that it's easier to blame an inanimate object than it is to deal with the underlying problems that are huge, that no one knows how to handle. We have a mental health system in the United States that actually does not work. For 25 years, I was general counsel for a company that provided mental health services pursuant to government contract. I've seen the system work from the inside. It is inadequate. The people who work in the system are hardworking people. There just aren't enough of them. There's not enough money to go around to make that work. We also have other issues. We've got issues in education. We've got issues in economics, and we've got social issues that are just too big for people to get their heads around. So it's a whole lot easier to say bad NRA, bad gun, than it is to say bad society not doing its job, government not doing its job, looking at the issues that really need to be looked at. You know, if you've got gangbangers running around in your community almost uninhibited, then why? Is it the courts? Is it because the police are not being supported? Is it because there aren't enough police? Is it because the police are inadequate? I don't know. Why do we have gangs? Has anybody answered that question? And an interesting thing here in Delaware, city of Wilmington, which most people in the United States have never heard of until they found out that Joe Biden lives there. And that's not a good thing either. But having said that, a few years ago, it was labeled as Murder City, because for a city of its size, it had more violence than any other city of its size. They brought in the CDC, Center for Disease Control, to do a study. And they did a study. And out of that study, they had 3 things that they suggested that government do. And none of those things have been done, and none of those things have been addressed. Absolutely none. And none of them have to do with guns. They all have to do with societal problems: education, mental health, jobs, economics, and the way government works. It has nothing to do with guns, which was kind of surprising because the CDC is pretty much known as an anti-gun organization of the government. But the report that they did was actually a pretty good report, but nothing has been done. Why? Because the problems are huge and they are broad-based. So back to answering your question, the reason they come after the NRA, the reason they come after the guns is because it's the easier thing to do. It's an escape. It's, to be honest, it's a dishonest approach because they're ignoring what's really going on. It's not the NRA. And the NRA teaches safety, it teaches responsibility, it teaches people to be law-abiding. So it's not the NRA, and it's not the gun. Have you ever seen any of your rifles jump up off of the bench and shoot anybody? I've never seen one. I've never seen one go off by itself.
Well, it's very unfortunate that that's the automatic reaction, because if looked at from the bird's eye view, I think we could actually do something to minimize mass shootings or eliminate them altogether. But when instead of doing that, they and I say they, the anti-gun proponents, they immediately want to blame the gun, and all of a sudden it becomes a political discussion. And the real problem goes unaddressed. And guess what? Just going to argue, push. Let's take rights away. Let's do this. And of course, again, becomes a huge battle. But the real problem is just sitting there.
The real problem is, and I really don't want to get this political, but I feel compelled to do so because I believe it, the deterioration of the nuclear family. Where do we first learn responsibility? Where do we first learn respect for other people? We learn it at home. Our parents teach us, especially if you have siblings. You respect your older brother, your younger sister, whatever it might be. Don't hit them. Don't steal their stuff. Whatever. We learn it at home, and without that nuclear family, we're in trouble. And there are those within our society right now who would destroy the nuclear family, who don't believe that it's important. We have a welfare system that encourages fathers not to be in the home. That's not good. That's not good. Without that father image, where does the young male get their guidance? Who is their role model? Is it the gangbanger on the corner, or is it the father in the home? So it's those types of things. When we start talking about these things, Eric, we end up going into areas that have absolutely nothing to do with competitive shooting or sport shooting or owning a firearm or any of the rest of that stuff. It has to do with us being responsible citizens, electing the right people, people who do understand and who do have the nerve, if you will, who are brave enough to take on the system and change the system and change the way our society thinks. Going back to basics, fundamentals. I don't know. I'm not a member of a church right now, but I happen to believe that the Christian Judaic code that the country was founded upon is part of what has made America great. The understanding of right and wrong, the understanding of individual responsibility. I think once we return to those things, we're going to see these mass shootings go down. Mass shootings are done by people who are mentally ill. I mean, there can be no question, unless, of course, they're mass shootings having to do with crime. I'm not even sure what the definition of mass shooting is anymore. It's been twisted and turned for political purposes. But the mass shooting that you and I think of are the things that happen in schools and the things that happen that don't make any sense at work or what have you. Someone has to know that person is headed in that direction. Someone has to know that person needs help, and there has to be, once that person is identified as needing help, that help has to be there. Are we going to solve all the problems that way? Of course not. But we can solve more than we're solving now. I firmly believe that. And it doesn't have to do with treading on other people's rights. It has to do with protecting those rights. I firmly believe that, and I've dedicated my entire life, not just to NRA, but my entire life as an attorney, as a policeman before that, to the Constitution of the United States. Someone described it almost as a religion. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it almost is. Those words, as few as there are, shape our country and should be shaping our lives, and we should allow them to. But that's my personal thing. I don't intend to preach. Turn up the hymns and pass the collection plate. Maybe it's time for that. But you open the door and I walk through it. So.
That's perfectly fine. Now, why is there such a, you as an attorney, maybe you can explain this to me. Why is there such a discrepancy as to the belief or the I don't know if belief is the correct word, but what the Second Amendment actually means? I've heard people actually argue about what it means. Attorneys, I've heard them argue and say, well, that's not what it means. It means this, it means that. And if you look at the punctuation and things of that nature, to me, I think it's pretty clear. But anyway, can you go into that a little bit as to the legal meaning versus the I'm going to call it implied meaning?
Well, I will confess to being an originalist. I believe that Scalia was correct, and I think that Justice Thomas was correct, especially when he wrote the Bruin decision. The founding fathers understand that the revolution began in earnest at Concord Bridge, the shot heard around the world. What were the British trying to do? They were trying to disarm the colonists. That's what they were trying to do. Why were they trying to do that? So they couldn't stand up to the oppression of the government, and the government at that point was the king and the British government. That's what the founding fathers knew. You have to understand their point of view. Every one of those first 10 amendments, especially the first 8, had to do with their experience as loyal British subjects whose king and whose government took away their rights as free Englishmen. Every single one of those rights, the First Amendment and everything that's contained in it, the Second Amendment, the Third, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth, the Seventh, and the Eighth, all were part of their experience during that time, during the middle to late 1700s, from about 1730 up through 1776, and then eventually 1781. But having said all that, to understand the meaning of any of that, you have to understand what the founders meant. And that's why Scalia was correct. That's why Thomas is correct. That's why the Bruin decision talks about changing the way a law is viewed, is interpreted, text, history, and tradition. We look at 1791. 1791 is when the amendment was adopted. So we look at what they knew in 1791. What were they writing about? What were they trying to protect? What was common to them? That's where we go to understand the meaning of the Second Amendment. For that matter, the meaning of the rest of the amendments, in my opinion. It's not where the law is right now, but that's where it should be. So they understood, for instance, the Fourth Amendment, okay, the protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. The Brits were kicking in doors and seizing things all the time, guns among other things, guns and powder. They were seizing people. The Third Amendment, one that most people don't even look at, the housing of troops. You know, it's unconstitutional for the government to house troops in your home without your permission, except in time of war. Why were the British housing troops in Boston or wherever in people's homes? To keep an eye on them, mostly, to control them. That's why they were doing it. We don't see that now. The Third Amendment probably has, I don't know that it's ever been litigated. Second Amendment wasn't litigated until Heller, and then McDonald and now Bruin. It all goes back, to answer your question, it all goes back to what the founders, the people who wrote those documents, the people who put those words on paper for the first time, parchment, if you will, what they meant. And they meant to address the abuses of the British that they had lived under. It is not a living document. There are those, especially on the left, especially the anti-gunners, who believe that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and that it has to evolve. No, it doesn't. If you want it to evolve, amend it. Don't make it up as you go along. That's the difference, and that's probably what you're struggling with, and that's whatever all of us struggle with, is how do these people say that the Second Amendment is about the militia? No, it isn't. It's not about the militia. The militia, as Justice Scalia pointed out in the Heller decision, militia is another word for the people. That's exactly what the militia stood for. Everyone was part of the militia. And yet everyone also had the power and authority to protect themselves in their homes from bandits, from those who would attack them. Remember, most of what we think of as Middle America right now is the frontier. Western Pennsylvania, Western New York, Western North Carolina, Western Virginia. That was frontier. You literally had bears coming through the windows. you literally had Native Americans, Indians, who said, "We don't want you here. We want you to leave." And people had the right to protect themselves. They also had the right to put food on the table. But we don't do that very much anymore. Some of us still do. I'm getting a little old for it, but I still like the taste of venison. I love duck and I love goose. I'm a hunter. There are those still in this country today who are subsistence hunters. We have to remember that. They have the right to keep bear arms to put food on their table.
I agree. Now, the shooting sports, I believe that is one good way to reform somebody. I don't know if reform is the correct word. But I've been hanging around competitive shooters for over a decade, and those are some of the best people I have ever met. Some of the most level-headed people I've ever met, and they understand responsibility, hard work. That's what it takes to win championships.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I part of what I do with my YouTube channel and my podcast is try to expose people that would never have the exposure to competitive shooting sports, to kind of give them a peek into what we go through. It's a brotherhood. It's everybody that when I go to a shooting competition, it's like I'm home.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, I have been a competitive shooter in one sport or another since I was in my teens. I'm starting off with shotgun. F-class is my 7th competitive shooting sport in my lifetime. Why? Because I'm at home on a range, not because of the smell of the gunpowder or any of that. It's the people. It's fun, and you've done this, I know. You have someone come to the range and stand behind you and ooh and ah at your gear and ask questions and oh man, I wish I could do that. Well, you can. You can. How many times have you taken somebody that you've met for the first time and introduced them to the sport, and then laid down next to them a couple of years later and had them challenge you?
Oh,
that's a great feeling.
it is.
That is a great feeling. It doesn't feel good to get beat. It feels good to get beat by somebody that you brought along.
It does, and it's happened to me, and I hope it happens more often. It's a great feeling, and I like to see them excel, because guess what? Now others are going to look up to them and ask for their help, which means they're going to bring other people into the sport.
And that's the exciting thing about F-class. F-class isn't about getting into a sling and a hardback coat and putting on a sweatshirt and all the rest of that. Anybody can shoot F-class. Anybody can shoot F-class. That's why all us old guys are shooting F-class, because we can't shoot some of those other things anymore. We don't have the upper body strength. Or in my case, my shoulders are gone. I can't get into a sling. If I did, you'd have to take me to the hospital to get me out of it. But I can shoot F-class. Look at some of the disabled shooters that shoot F-class and can't shoot anything else. Look at the kids. You can be any age, any sex, any strength, and shoot F-class. And it's one of the reasons why F-class is growing. It's the place to be. It's fun. We actually had it, and you don't normally see this. most F-class shooters either start out as F-class and stay there, or they come from sling over to F-class. We've actually got a couple of people at our club that started out F-class and went over to sling. Youngsters, hey, I can do that. Can I shoot your Palmer rifle? Oh yeah, I can do this. So it's about the people, because these people that are competitive shooters are the kind of people that you can invite to your home, that you can have a beer with, that you want to invite to your home and have a beer with. They're good people. They're good, solid people, and many of them don't understand what you and I understand about the Second Amendment. I look at the shooting sports as the ability to exercise the right to keep and bear arms. It's the exercise. What good is the right if you don't exercise the right? So,
I agree. Now, let's. I'm gonna. You know, you're an F-class shooter. You've been for a while. What's your? Let's talk a little bit about actual shooting for the some of the hardcore fans that I have. They come here to hear about shooting.
Sure.
So we're not going to disappoint them. So what cartridge do you shoot?
I shoot 284 Win, straight 284. I started off shooting 6.5 284. 900 rounds on a barrel is not the way to go. I love that round. I just don't have either the patience, the time, or the money to be replacing barrels as frequently as necessary. So I shoot the 284. I shoot a 180 Burger hybrid. I use H4350 is my powder, and my brass is usually the Lapua. I like that cartridge. I really do.
It's very simple. It's a very simple cartridge. It just works. It's consistent, and you get long barrel life. About 2,000. Is that usually about what you get?
1,800 to 2,000. I had one barrel that went to 2,200 before it started to open up on me.
Yeah. Define open up. That's the one that a lot of people don't understand.
Well, it can be spectacular when it does, or it can be, most of the time it's not. Open up to me means that the group opens. It's no longer consistent.
To what point, I guess, is the question. What point does it become unacceptable to you to keep using that barrel?
When I know that shot should have been an X, and there's nothing out there that tells me that it shouldn't be an X, and it turns out to be a 9, and it turns out to be a 9 that to me isn't wind. It's usually vertical, but it's not necessarily vertical. It can be one or two corners, whatever. It's when I no longer have the group that I know I should have, and there's nothing on the range telling me that group shouldn't be there. That's when I know I start having a problem. Now, I had one in Delaware State Championship about 3 or 4 years ago, probably about 4 years ago, where it went spectacularly. It wasn't just from the X ring to the 10 ring and a leaker 9. It went from the X ring literally. I cleaned the first match, and the second match I think I had a 185 or something like that, and it wasn't the wind, and it wasn't me. It just opened up, looked like a shotgun. That's unusual, but it's the one I think about every time. Every time I start looking at my round count, say, "Oh man, I'm not going to take the chance. Is this the match that I'm going to? Do I take it off before this match or not?"
Were there any signs other than barrel count that it was not looking good?
Yeah, I started getting a little more vertical than I should have. That's me. I'm not the top rate shooter that you are and some of the other guys on the team are. I'm just a tag along. But to me, it's opening up. I'm not seeing anything else. And maybe if you got something you can share with me, I can learn from you on this podcast. But I don't see anything except it opening up.
Well, I don't. What I do is once they get really hard to clean, I
Okay.
figured, well, it's already picking up too much off the because that stuff's coming from somewhere, right? It's coming from the
Yeah, it is.
bullet.
It is. It is.
And once it gets to the point where after a day of shooting, it's really loaded up, I don't give it a chance to go south on me. I just say, you know what, I'm just gonna retire this barrel. And sometimes I retire them at 1600, sometimes at 1500. It depends on what I'm doing or what's coming up. For example, right now the World Championship's coming up. I had a pretty good barrel. That's the one I took to Bisley. I ended up second place, and it was a good barrel, but it had about 1,400 rounds on it. And I thought, well, I have Southwest Nationals coming up. I have World Champ. I said, this barrel just needs to go. I need to start on another one. And sometimes I just retire them just because timing is, it's pointless for me to keep working on that barrel. And because, pointless because it's not going to make those matches. Even if I took it right now, it can't make it through the World Championship.
Right.
And two, if I keep shooting it, that's simply taking away time for me working on something else. So I simply retired it. But typically, if they start looking pretty rough in the sense of to clean, I just pull them off. I mean, that's where they're headed, and I don't want it to happen to me, kind of like it happened to you in the middle of a match.
Well, I was also trying to get just one more match
Yeah.
out of a barrel. I knew better, but
That's when they happen. As a matter of fact, I witnessed one this weekend, and it wasn't a barrel; it was his brass. He shot, and he could hardly open a bolt. Shot again, could hardly open a bolt, and we told him. I said, that brass seems awfully tight. He goes, yeah. He goes, that brass is old. I was trying to get just one more firing out of it, and guess what? It didn't work out. So, but I've been there, so I typically try to abort before that happens when I start seeing the signs.
Well, I had a really outstanding barrel that I shot the Southwest National, the last Southwest Nationals with it. I had planned on taking off and saving for the Worlds. At that point, it had about 900 rounds on it, and I cleaned the last 1,000 yards with it. I thought, okay, that's good. That's good. I'm going to pull this rascal off. This will be my World's barrel. So then I went to work up a new barrel and to replace it to shoot the rest of the season with, and it's a better barrel. So that's the one. That's
nothing
the one
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
So.
I had a really good barrel. Nowadays I kind of measure my barrel performance by how many cleans I shoot with them.
Okay.
I had a barrel that I had, I'm gonna say about 15 cleans with on the life of the barrel out of 1,000. This thing would clean back to back thousands in Phoenix, and all the places. This is the first barrel where I started cleaning targets back to back, where typically you clean the morning one and then the second one is, and the rest of the day is hard. And
it's in my case, it's not the barrel, it's me. I have yet to really learn to read wind. You guys that read wind, I just envy you. I struggle. We don't see the wind out west that you guys have out west here in the east.
Mm-hmm.
Ours is more subtle. The shifts and that type of thing. Ours is more subtle, and a lot of our ranges are not honest ranges. You get vertical that out of nowhere on some of our ranges here in the east, especially my home range, Bridgeville. We think we've got gremlins down there somewhere that reach out and snatch around. But my barrels, I'm happy with the barrels and the gunsmith that works my barrels for me. I just, maybe before I get too much older, I'll learn to read wind the way you do.
It's not that hard, John. If it's coming left to right, hold left.
Easy for you to say.
And if it picks up, and if it picks up, hold up a little more.
I saw the podcast that you did with F Class John. It was a great podcast.
Thank you.
Good work. I saw that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that wind reading is really the hard part, honestly. It's because nobody pulls a trigger at 1,000 yards expecting to hit the X ring without being absolutely certain that it's an X. But guess what? As my podcast, believe the target. When that target comes up and it's a 9, you can't argue with it. You were wrong. The target is right.
The flags may lie. The mirage may lie, but that target doesn't lie.
The target, you have to believe it. If you don't believe the target, what can you believe, right?
Well, I've made that mistake. I have made that mistake. Oh, it went out there. Take a look in the scope. You look at it, say, all right, if you say so, then I'll hold on. You hold off a little more, it goes right in the same place the last one did, because it picked up more than I thought it did.
Yeah, precisely. So the World Championship. So 2005 was last time it was in South Africa?
I believe so. I'm not positive of that, but I think it was, yes.
We're going to go get a gold. You know that, right?
That's my prayer. That's what I'm hoping for.
No prayers, my friend. They need to be praying. We're going to go get a gold.
That's my dream. That's my dream.
We're going to go get it. Has the U.S., I know they won the first one. Is that correct? Are you aware? I
believe that's correct. I believe that's correct, yes.
And I think that's it, right? As far as I know.
I'm not sure. I know 13 we didn't, 17 we didn't.
In 2009 we didn't. And that's as far as as I can go back, because that's when I've been involved with the sport. But 09, we didn't win. 13, we didn't. Well, 09, the Great Britain won. It was in Bisley. 13.
We've got good shooters and we've got good wind coaches.
13, the Australians won, and I think 17 they won it again. So we're gonna have to all my Aussie friends. We're gonna break your hearts, buddy. We're gonna break your hearts, but it's okay.
No more coming into the hall going Aussie, 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 Aussie.
No, we're gonna go get a gold, John.
We're gonna go into the hall going USA, USA, USA.
Yeah. And here's the thing about competitive sports that I absolutely freaking love. Everybody goes there for the gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know for a fact when we went, we're going for gold. But when we don't win, we are absolutely happy for whoever wins.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is... To me, I think because we know how hard you must work to achieve that we recognize and we respect their achievement.
We're going to give our all. We know that they're going to give their all. The question is, whose all is going to be the best? And my prediction is, it's us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe it. It's going to happen.
We've got great wind coaches. We got great shooters. And I am confident that this is our year.
Yep.
This is our year.
It's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen, and then we're gonna do it again. And hey, why not? Anyway,
but both open and TR.
Oh yeah,
both.
The TR guys, they've been doing it. They know how to do it. They are the dream team, unbeatable. But the open team is about to become that as well.
I believe it.
If I can do anything about it, it's gonna happen. And I am a coach, so I do have a lot to do with it. That's why I'm so confident that we're gonna do well. I've seen what we've been doing. I've seen our shooters. I've seen our coaching staff. I've seen our leadership. It's a good team.
Well, one of the reasons I'm confident is because you were one of our coaches.
Well, thank you.
And I don't mean that simply because I'm on the podcast. I firmly believe that we've got great coaches, and the shooter's going to do what you guys tell us to do, and I know that you're going to tell us to do the right thing, and I am looking forward to it.
Again, I've never given a call where I'm not 100% sure it's an X, or international, it would be a V bull. But anyway, well, John, this has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
I know you're a busy man. You still practice, I see, huh?
Yes, I'm here in my office, and I have a 10:30 appointment, so this is working well. The timing is great, and I appreciate your patience with getting this scheduled, and I apologize for being late coming on.
That's okay. That's okay.
And I've enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to seeing you. I will not be at Southwest Nationals. Unfortunately, I have some commitments at home that I need to take care of. But I certainly look forward to seeing you in Atlanta as we get on the airplane to go to South Africa.
Perfect. All right, John. Take care. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.